سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولله على الناس حج البيت من استطاع إليه سبيلا. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib.
اللهم صل على محمد.
The third with your loudest voices in honor of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. A request for the brothers at the back, one more final request to come closer to the front. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The discussion concerning pilgrimage is a fundamental discussion in Islamic thought, and indeed a fundamental discussion in religious thought in general, and a discussion which requires a thorough analysis, for it is one which affects each and every one of our lives. It is a discussion from which many lessons may be learnt and many examples may be derived, and a discussion with a historical base and a contemporary significance. Contemporary in the idea that each and every religion in the world today prides itself on its places of pilgrimage. Millions upon millions of its followers go towards these places of pilgrimage and go towards these journeys. They experience different experiences. They feel different emotions. They gain insight of different areas in their life. And indeed, whether it is Lord's or Amritsar or indeed Jerusalem, each one of these places is a place of reverence which people go and visit year after year. Likewise, the religion of Islam is a religion which prides itself on its places of worship and sees two benefits when a person goes on a pilgrimage. The first being individual, the second being collective. On the individual level, the benefit is of course that the human being learns the art of struggling and yearning to reach God. And that when anybody goes on a pilgrimage, there is a search in their life towards getting closer to God, a struggle which is part of their very essence. At the same time, there is a collective benefit because you meet people of different races, people from different backgrounds and from different tribes. Some who are rich, some who are poor, some who are educated, some who are not so educated. And therefore you find that nothing differentiates you in reality but that white piece of cloth which you wear. And that's why within the religion of Islam you have two types of pilgrimages. One which is recommended and one which is obligatory. Recommended places of pilgrimages, for example, Medina, the holy land of our Prophet, where he is buried, peace be upon him and his family, where the Imams of Ahlul Bayt are buried, where some of the most renowned companions of the Prophet are buried. That's a place which is seen as a recommended place of pilgrimage. Likewise, you find, for example, Najaf al-Ashraf, where Amir al-Mu'mineen is buried, Karbala al-Muqaddasa, where Abu Abdullah and his brother and the companions are buried. Likewise, al-Kadhmiya, al-Kadhmain, where Imam al-Kadhim, Imam al-Jawad are buried. You find Sham, for example, Mashhad, Samarra. These are all recommended places of pilgrimage. But then you have what is known as the obligatory place of pilgrimage, and that is of course Mecca and the pilgrimage that is Hajj. This pilgrimage is one which each human being, it's obligatory upon them to undertake. And to many, they look forward to this experience as being a life-changing experience. However, recently many who have come back from Hajj have felt that Hajj didn't change them at all. That they went to Hajj and came back and they were exactly the same people. They thought that the Hajj would change them. They thought there would be a sudden change in their life, but they came back to their countries and found that there was no change whatsoever. And indeed this proves the narration of our Holy Prophet when he states that there are three types of people when they return from Hajj. The first is the one whose past sins are all forgiven, and the future sins God will ensure that he receives help in being protected from them. The second, his past sins are all forgiven, but the future sins he's going to have to work hard on. And the third will give him his money back. That's it. Other than that, there's been no change in terms of the past or in terms of the future. And that's why you find many who will go on the pilgrimage seeing it really because maybe their friends have gone and therefore they want to join friends, or some who will go because family have gone and they want to join family, or some who see it culturally as important that they've reached an age where everybody is gone but them, and culturally it's not right that they've reached that age, so they decide to go. You'll even find the most trivial who will say that I can't wait to taste, for example, a Whopper from Burger King, which is halal. Or some will say that I want a view from the Hilton overlooking Mecca. There are people who when they get there, the first thing they think about is that. It's not about how close I'll get to my Lord, rather it's how quickly can I experience those experiences. And this lack of a change in Hajj was what made Dr. Ali Shariati write his book on Hajj. Because Dr. Ali Shariati's book on Hajj is arguably the best work on Hajj that you will find today. And Dr. Ali Shariati, as we know, is revered as one of the greatest thinkers in the 20th century. He was born in 1933 and he died at the tender age of 44 in 1977. And when you look at it, you see a man who had studied in both the East and the West. In the East, he had studied in Mashhad, and in the West, he had studied at the Sorbonne in Paris. And at the Sorbonne, he studied under some of the greatest academics and historians. For example, he studied under Louis Massignon, history. He studied philosophy under Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre. And indeed it was Sartre who said, I don't follow a religion, but if I follow the religion, I'd follow Shariati. Because Dr. Ali Shariati was the type of thinker who sought to reform Islamic society. He sought to think of new ways in which to depict Islam in a way which dealt with the modern issues. That's why when you look at the titles of Shariati's books, you find that the titles are very interesting and in the eyes of some very controversial. For example, that one of his titles was A Glance at Tomorrow's History. Tomorrow's history. How do you glance at tomorrow's history? To Shariati, you yourself can change society. You can be a revolutionary thinker. Therefore, he stressed that have a glance at tomorrow's history, meaning that have a look towards the future and see what you can do to the future. The same Shariati wrote a book, Fatima is Fatima. Why did he write this book? Because he said there's too many people who respect Fatima Zahra because she's the daughter of Rasulullah. And there's others who respect her because she's the wife of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But Fatima is Fatima. She doesn't need to be linked to anyone. She by herself is great. When you revere her because she's linked to somebody, that's not greatness. Greatness is what you achieve in your own life. Likewise, he had a book, Red Shi'ism versus Black Shi'ism. Black Shi'ism being very cultural, a hierarchy which dictates a culture rather than a religion. Whereas Red Shi'ism being revolutionary, Hussein living forever in the hearts of many. And therefore you found that he used to lecture at Husseiniya Irshad in Tehran. The Husseiniya is still there until today. That Husseiniya was set up by whom? Amongst the people who set up that Husseiniya was Shaheed Mutahhari. And when Mutahhari set up that Husseiniya, what was his aim? His aim was that he wanted a Husseiniya which brought about intellectual reform. A Husseiniya where the minbar wasn't just there for people to repeat the same lectures every year, but that the minbar was there to shape the future of the ummah, to discuss the issues which are relevant to the ummah, to allow people to connect the past to the present. And he asked Shariati to sit on the minbar. And how would Shariati lecture? Shariati would lecture with a pinstripe suit and he was clean shaven. Today in the Muslim world, if a person lectured with a pinstripe suit and they were clean shaven, you'd find the Muslim world attack them straight away. Where is his beard? Why is he wearing a suit? And the famous words of Amir al-Mu'min come back when he states, don't look at who's speaking, rather look at what they're saying. Too many in the Muslim world focus on the image. And how many a time you've been deceived by the image. Whereas when Shariati spoke, what do you find? You found that he spoke like he studied, and he was able to revolutionize many of the people around him. That he died a couple of years before the revolution, yet in reality it was maybe his works that helped a lot of the revolution. And that's why he wrote his book on Hajj. He had been to Hajj 3 times. And when he had gone to Hajj on these 3 occasions, he wanted to write a book expressing what the real Hajj meant. Why? Because Shariati wanted to differentiate between Islam, the truth, and Islam, the reality. To Shariati, Islam, the truth, was a religion which looked for the intellectual evolution of the human being. It wanted to mold the human. It wanted to spiritually uplift the human. It wanted the human to be a visionary in the world of the arts, in the world of the sciences, and in the world of humanities. He said, however, Islam, the reality, is in a stage of being in a dark age. It is far away from science, far away from the arts, far away from the humanities. It is languishing far behind. And he said the best example to understand how Islam is languishing behind is in 3 key concepts: Tawheed, Jihad, and Hajj. Tawheed, he said, many Muslims study up until the age of 16, then they suddenly stop. I said, think about yourself. When was the last time you read an analysis of Tawheed? In the madrasas, he would say that people would study Tawheed until 16, then it would stop. When it stops at 16, that accountability and that consciousness of God's presence isn't present anymore. You left it at the age of 16. Number 1, he said jihad has been left to the graveyards. We used to have Muslims who are ready for jihad all the time. But the Muslims of today, the jihad has been left in the graveyards. Number 3, he said Hajj. He said, look at Hajj of the Muslims. Hajj today has become a holiday, tourist attraction, rather than being a change in the life of the human being. And that's why at the beginning of his book on Hajj, he quite beautifully begins by stating, know one thing, that Hajj is the evolution of man towards God. And that Hajj is the very antithesis of aimlessness. What does this mean? This means that you, the human being, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. Saturday, go out. Sunday, sleep. Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. Saturday, go out. Sunday, sleep. You fall into a robotic trap sometimes. You're just moving and working and working and moving and moving and working. He said when you're going to Hajj and you're going on that movement, you are moving away from the aimlessness that's there in your life. Rather now you're going towards a purpose. That's why he said Hajj is not a journey, it's a movement. Because he said a journey ends, whereas a movement never ends. He went on to say after that, let's understand one thing. Hajj is not a destination to be reached. Rather, Hajj is a goal to be approached. Difference. To some, Hajj is a destination to be reached. To Shariati, it's a goal to be approached. And therefore, he began explaining Hajj in a way where I know in this crowd today, there are some of you who've been to Hajj and some of you who are praying to go. I guarantee you, when you reach Shariati's eyes of Hajj, you will look at your Hajj and wonder, did I perform it in the way I should have or no? Because Shariati takes you on a journey where you feel you're in Mecca, but you feel that your soul, the whole universe, exists within it. Let's see where his journey takes us and examine it. He begins by stating that know one thing. When you wear that ihram, in reality you are wearing your shroud. So he says you are beginning on the journey as if it's the journey towards God after death. He says the first thing you should understand before you go to Hajj is what? Please listen to his words. He states that if you knew you were going to die, wouldn't you make sure you've paid off all your debts and your loans? You'd make sure that your debts and your loans are all paid off. He'd say likewise when you're going towards Hajj, know one thing, that Hajj is you got to make sure that all your debts and your loans have been paid off. Do not go owing members of the community money, because there are many who go to Hajj. You find that he's gone to 20 Hajj but he owes 60 people money. How did you go to Hajj? Unless you have an agreement with those people, there is no way you could have gone to Hajj. If they've allowed you to use their money, go ahead. But if they haven't, then make sure you clean those debts before you go. He then went on to state that understand that Hajj is 5 shows. A show of history, and a show of creation, and a show of ideology, and a show of unity, and a show of the Ummah. Let's go through these 5 shows. He says for every show you need a stage manager. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you need symbols. So he said your symbols are going to be what? Your symbols are going to be your ihram, and some scissors, and maybe a knife. You also need to know who the main themes are about. So he said Adam, Ibrahim, Ismail, Hajar and Shaitan. He said you also need to know where the stage is. He said the stage will be in Mina and Muzdalifah and Arafah. He said you also need to know who the actor is. You're the actor. He then moved on from there to say let's go to the first show. He said the first show in Hajj is a show of history. That you appreciate the history that has remained with you from the time of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Because we know that each of the actions in Hajj is in reality a representation of Nabi Ibrahim in Hajj. Or Nabi Ibrahim with his son or with his wife. For example, when you pray near Maqam Ibrahim, you are praying near the place where Ibrahim and his son built the Kaaba. When, for example, you move from Safa to Marwa, you are moving in the same way Hajar moved from Safa to Marwa. When you drink of the water of Zamzam, you are drinking of that water that came out for Ismail. When you throw those stones, you are throwing the stones which sought to remove Shaitan from Ibrahim. In each movement, you are in a show of history, and your history is important to each and every one of you. But he says, make sure you hold on to that history. Why? Because he said the first reformer to the history of Hajj was the Holy Prophet himself. Why? Because you know how the Arabs used to perform their Hajj? Number one, they used to perform tawaf naked. The Arabs used to perform their tawaf naked. You say to them, why are you doing your tawaf naked? He says to you, because God says that I have to be in my most simple. So this is my most simple. We said you have to be in your most simple, but there's certain parts which you have to cover to remain in your most simple. They used to perform Hajj. The tawaf was naked, for example, number one. Number two, when they go around the Kaaba, they would be gossiping with one another about others. Number three, they get involved in petty arguments with one another over the most trivial issues. Number four, when they'd sacrifice the animal, they'd get the blood and throw it towards the Kaaba, and they'd sacrifice the animal towards their idols. Notice that even today, some of those Jahiliyyah actions are still in the behavior of some people at Hajj. Gossiping, normal. He's gone to Hajj, but he's still gossiping about the members of the group. Fighting, normal. Why is the rice today burnt? Why is the flight late? You told me the flight will be at 6. Can you not see the man's got 800 people with him? As in, what do you think? He's going to automatically be able to bring you a flight like that? You find that when Rasulullah reformed Hajj, he wanted the people to understand the true history of Hajj. That when you people come and sacrifice the animals and throw the blood on the Kaaba, the Quran revealed the verse, Allah does not care about your sacrifices. Rather, Allah cares about how conscious you are of His presence. Don't come and fight near me when you come towards my house. Rather, be conscious of your history. He said, after you move from the history, you move on. He goes, when you move on, you go to wear the ihram. Listen to his lines about ihram. He said, when you go to wear the ihram, many of you will be told, now you take your old clothes off and you wear your new clothes. He said, many of you will be concerned, is my ihram properly on? As in, is it going to fall? No, I'll hold on to it. I'll make sure that the ihram's covering my shoulder, not covering my shoulder. He said, you have not understood what the real ihram is. He said, do you know which clothes you are taking off and which clothes you are putting on? He said, you're taking off the skin of a wolf, or some of you will take off the skin of a rat, some will take off the skin of a fox, and some will take off the skin of a sheep. He said, do you understand what the skin is of a fox and of a rat and of a sheep? What is that skin? And of the wolf? He said, some of us when we go to Hajj, we've got an ihram, we've got a skin known as the skin of a wolf, meaning we've always been fierce and oppressive with our fellow brothers in the community. He said, there are some whose skin is that of a wolf. They're always argumentative. They look for fights in their own community. They look to spark trouble at any occasion. When anybody disagrees with them, they always want to make it an argument and do not leave that argument alone. He said, the first skin you take off is the skin of being a wolf, and you wear your new ihram. Then he said, but there are some who wear the skin of a rat. What's that? The skin of being crafty people. They cause trouble in the community, but go and say salamu alaikum to the same people they've caused trouble for. In their community, they cause trouble, but like a rat, they craftily get themselves out of trouble. They go to say salam to the same people that they have got the trouble into. He says, you should take off the skin of being a rat and wear your ihram. Then he said, the third group of people in Hajj, they wear the skin of a fox. They are sly. They look like pious individuals, but they are the biggest hypocrites. They look like they are always worshipping Allah, yet behind the scenes they are causing trouble against the religion of Allah. They look like they are bringing complimentaries towards you, when really they have hatred. He said, them, they should take off the skin of a fox. Then he said, the fourth group of people have got the skin of a sheep. They never speak out against oppression and injustice. They like the sheep, they just follow. Do you want me to do this? I'll follow. You want me to do this? I'll follow. Why don't you speak out? I'm sorry, if I speak out, the community might look down at me. But there's a form of oppression. What do you mean the community will look down? He says they have the skin of a sheep. He said those are the four categories of people who come to the miqat. One's got the skin of a wolf, one's got the skin of a sheep, one's got the skin of a rat, one's got the skin of a fox. He said, when you put on your ihram, say, Ya Allah, if I have any of these, I want to remove them now. And now I want to wear the skin of your obedience. He said, as soon as you wear ihram, someone's going to tell you that now 25 things are haram for you. True or no? He said, straight away, someone's going to come and tell you, it's haram to look in the mirror. It's haram to kill an animal, an insect. It's haram for you to pull out a weed from the ground. It's haram for you to be with your partner. It's haram for you to put on perfume. He said, don't look at the exterior, look at the interior of why Allah made these haram. He said, when Allah said to you, don't look at the mirror, it's because Allah didn't want you to look at the mirror of your body, but for once look at the mirror of your soul. He said, throughout your life, when you look in the mirror, you're more concerned with the body, but for once now look in the mirror of your soul. How clean is that soul that you look after in your life? He said, when Allah said to you, don't put on perfume, it's because Allah was saying to you, I want you to smell the real fragrance of obedience towards me. When Allah said to you, don't kill an insect, it's because Allah wanted you to walk around the earth like Jesus, son of Mary. That when he'd walk on the earth, he'd be worried that make sure there's no insect that I may have killed as I was walking. When Allah says to you, don't pull out weed from the ground or the plants, it's because Allah is telling you, oh mankind, are you concerned about the environment I gave you as a trust? When you look at the depletion of the ozone layer or the contamination of water, are you concerned about that? That when I'm telling you not to pull out a plant, I want you to use it as a metaphor that the whole world should be protected like Mecca is protected. When I tell you not to go with your partner, it's because I want you and your partner to smell the real love, and that is loving the eternal life, not the temporary one. Notice how Shariati moves you from pure dogma. Because whenever you go on Hajj, you're told by the Maulana, haram, 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 haram. Okay, Maulana, explain to me spiritually. Spiritually, why am I not looking in the mirror? What's wrong with me? What is it? Because you should be looking at your soul, not your body. Remove the vanity and move on. He says, once you have done that, you then proceed towards the Kaaba. He said, when you look at the Kaaba, your prayers are answered straight away as soon as you look at it. He said, then you go towards Tawaf. When you go towards Tawaf, why is it that Allah makes you go around the Kaaba 7 times? What is it? Because all we're ever told is make sure that your shoulder is facing and that you're between the maqam. If you step outside the maqam, you might burn in hellfire tomorrow. Make sure you're right within the maqam. Shariati says, wait. Why are you doing that tawaf? What's the reason? Notice that man who came to our 6th Imam and said to him, look how great Hajj is this year. Look how many people are doing tawaf. Imam said, look through my fingers. When he looked through the fingers, he saw animals performing tawaf, didn't he? Shariati says, do you know what tawaf is? He says there are 4 meanings to why you go around 7 times. Look at that. 4 meanings why you go around 7 times. He said the first meaning why you go around 7 times is to tell you, oh mankind, you are constantly moving whereas your Lord remains the same. There's a time I'm not religious, but my Lord looked after my religion. There's a time I was arrogant, my Lord was always humble. There's a time I was stingy, my Lord was always generous. Shariati says when you're moving around that Kaaba 7 times, you, O human, are always moving, but your Lord always is the same. Ya ayyuhal insan ma gharraka bi rabbika al-karim. O mankind, what made you doubt that generous Lord of yours? When you're moving, it's a metaphor for life, that you are moving all the time, up and down, religious and not religious. Your Lord remains fixed. Number 1. Number 2, he says, look at what they tell you to do. It's a metaphor for life. You have to be constant with your shoulder, and you have to be disciplined with your akhlaq. And number 3, you have to always be moving. He said that is the very meaning of the human being. They have to be constant in their principles, disciplined in their ethics, moving spiritually towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 3, he says when you go around Tawaf 7 times, they tell you there's an area you can't enter. What's it called? Hijr Ismail. That semicircle around the Kaaba, you can't go in there, can you? He said, do you know why Allah made you remember that semicircle 7 times? He said, think about who's buried there. A lady, number 1. A black lady, number 2. A slave black lady, number 3. It's as if Allah was taking you in a circle to tell you, mankind, the worst disease that can ever affect you is racism, and is you being a person who is arrogant towards those who are less well off than you, and you being arrogant towards the opposite gender. Therefore, purposely I have made you remember a lady who is not only a lady, but she was a slave girl, and she was of a colored complexion, yet I will make every believer of mine encircle her grave all their life. Notice that we are going round, but in a way we're demolishing racism as we go round. We are saying that that lady is the mother of a prophet and the wife of a prophet. Yet that lady was a slave originally, and she wasn't of our complexion. Yet Allah wanted us to break and destroy that 7 times as we move round. But number 4, he says something unbelievable. He says, do you know why Allah made you go around 7 times? The 4th reason? You are moving from the being of I to the being of we. When you came to Hajj, you kept on saying, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. when you got cramped in tawaf, you now knew that you were part of a we. Because when the human thinks individualistically about this religion, thinks of I, the religion never moves forward. But when you think of the religion as a we, this religion will always move forward. He says, when you're in that tawaf, Allah wants you to experience being a we, not being an I. Because for too long Muslims say I, and not enough Muslims say we. Therefore he says, when you finish the tawaf, you've got to go to Safa and Marwa. He says something extraordinary about Safa and Marwa. He says, in tawaf, you're thinking God, God, God. Because you say, Labbaik Allahumma, Labbaik. But in Safa and Marwa, do you need to say anything? You don't need to say anything in Safa and Marwa. He says that now you're moving from God, God, God to you, you, you. He says it's as if Allah wanted you to have that balance in your life. A time for God and a time for yourself. He said Allah didn't want you to go and live in a mountain, away from the world as a recluse and say God, God, God from the mountain. Nor did He want you to be in the middle of society without thinking of God whatsoever. Allah wanted you to have a balance. He said, but why from Safa to Marwa? He said, all they tell you is go Safa, Marwa, 7 times. He said, do you know what Safa and Marwa is? Safa is your the satanic vices you have in your life, the satanic values. Marwa is when you get to the godly values. You began at Safa with the most satanic values in you, arrogance and hypocrisy and greed and lust. When you get to Marwa, you want to replace them with generosity, patience, humility. He says that's number 1. Number 2, Safa is you being in a state of fear of Allah. Marwa is you being in a state of hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Too many of us live lives in a state of fear of Allah. He said when you're at Safa, you're in a state of fear. When you get to Marwa, you should be in a stage of hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said number 3, when you walk between Safa and Marwa, stand in the middle and look at Safa and Marwa as if they are the 2 scales of your deeds on the day of judgment. Sit there, right in the middle of Safa and Marwa, just stand there. Look at Safa, look at Marwa. When you look at the both of them, what should you say? You should look at the both of them and you should look at your day of judgment. Start thinking that if the scales are the scales more good than bad or bad than good. He said only then you'd appreciate what Safa and Marwa really is. He then says when you now have to leave the Kaaba, you have to leave Safa and Marwa. He says when you leave, you get closer to Allah. He said, isn't that a paradox? You leave someone's house but you get closer to Him? Because now you've discovered yourself, and whoever discovers themselves has discovered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said now you're going to go on the journey which is known as the journey of knowledge, the journey of consciousness, and the journey of love. He said the journey of knowledge begins at Arafah. Shariati's Arafah is unique. He says, you know when you go to Arafah, you get there to Arafah, you have to be there between Dhuhr to Maghrib, true? Arafah, you have to be there from Dhuhr to Maghrib. He said, why does Allah ask you to be there at Dhuhr? Simply because it's midday? No. Allah wants to ask you and tell you, you're at the Dhuhr of your life now. How are you going to live the rest of your life? You're at the midday of your life. You're at the Dhuhr of your life. How are you going to live the rest of it? By the principles of Ahlul Bayt or by the principles of their enemies? Then he says, number 2, at Arafah, do you need to look at anything? When you're at Arafah, do you need to look at anything? No. At Arafah, you're just told to stay there, aren't you? Do you know what Shariati says? Glory be to your look, not what you're looking at. Glory be to your look, not what you're looking at. Meaning what? Meaning that now you're sitting in Arafah, your look is more important than what you're looking at, because your look is the look of introspection. There is no look in the life of the human than when they reflect about the way they live their life. Allah didn't need to tell you at Arafah to look at a building or to look at a monument. All He said was sit there. Shariati says, glory be to your look, not what you're looking at. That look of introspection is so powerful. He says Arafah is a state of knowledge. Why? Because when Adam came down from the heavens, it was from Arafah that he prayed to Allah in the name of Muhammad and Ali and Fatima and Hassan and Hussein for Allah to forgive him. It's as if Adam had gained the true knowledge of the reality of the human being. He had gained knowledge of a closeness to Allah. And that's why he says, is there anything more merciful than when you're at Arafah and Allah says to you that if any of my servants doubt that I've forgiven all their sins at Arafah, then their Hajj is incomplete. Because you know, if you get to Arafah and you doubt that you've performed a sin and that Allah hasn't forgiven it, then that Hajj has got issues. Have you ever seen a more merciful Lord? Do I deserve this insignificant creature who's been so arrogant in his life? Do I deserve to get to Arafah and sit there and just for sitting for a few hours, my Lord tells me everything's wiped off now? And if I doubt it, my Hajj is incomplete. Is that a Lord who wants to punish or wants to be merciful? Ask yourself. He says when you then move from Arafah, you're going to go to Muzdalifah. He says when you get to Muzdalifah, you move from knowledge to what? You move from knowledge to consciousness. You are now conscious, you are alive, you have a clean slate, all your past sins are forgiven. You are now ready for war. So you go and look for these pebbles. You look for them. You're ready for war against that existent who for years had took you away from the consciousness of Allah. Against who? Against Shaitan. You pick those pebbles up and you're ready for war. He says, why does Allah say at Hajj in Muzdalifah you have to sleep under the darkness of the night? Don't we? Didn't we all sleep under the darkness of the night? He said, don't look at the darkness of the night. Say that Allah made me sleep to remind me that the dark part of my life will never affect me again. The dark years of my life when I wasn't religious will never come back to haunt me. I am a new creation. I am now conscious of my Lord. I've picked up my pebbles. He says, but do you know the difference between the soldier at Muzdalifah and any other soldier? Any other soldier on that night, when they're ready for war, will be drinking and merrymaking. Whereas he says the soldier at Muzdalifah has nothing to say but La ilaha illallah, subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. That soldier has got the ammunition of Allah's remembrance. He said, you now take these pebbles, you go towards stoning the shaitan. He has the most beautiful line over here. He says, when you go towards the stoning of the shaitan, and even before the stoning, he mentions an important point. But when it comes to the stoning of the shaitan, what does he state? He states, when you take those pebbles, too many people will tell you, throw the stones and make sure it hits the shaitan on the middle, on the top right hand corner, on the circumference of the diametrical of the... Gives you a headache. You think, okay, I'll throw it. He said, rather focus those 7 pebbles on 7 bad attributes that you have which you want to get rid of. What a lie. Each one of us has an attribute we want to get rid of, what we call a vice. Each one of us may have 2, 3, 4, some may have 7, some may have more. He says, pick up that pebble and look at it. And say that you've been part of my life for years, no more. I don't want you anymore. And throw it in a way where you show that it will never affect you again. He said once you've done that, he gets to the discussion about the sacrifice. And he says a quite beautiful line. He says, what is your Ismail? He said that man took his son, and that was his Ismail. What is your Ismail, O Muslim? Because each one of us has an Ismail. Each one of us has to make a sacrifice. And what better night than the night of the 10th of Muharram for us to ask ourselves, what's our Ismail? Is my Ismail a family member who I should be in relations with, but I've broken my relations? and in the name of Salat al-Rahim I will make sure I will bring back that relation, that may be your Ismail. Is my Ismail that I deal in haram wealth, and that I know I'm earning in haram, and my excuse is that I have to feed my family? Maybe that's your Ismail. Is my Ismail that I should be wearing hijab, but I keep postponing it? Every time I hear something about it, I postpone, and I postpone, and I postpone. Even though the lady I have come to honor tonight is a lady who stood up for the hijab, a lady who, even though they attacked her, she held onto the hijab. Is that my Ismail? Is my Ismail the way I behave with certain people, in rudeness when I talk with them? Maybe that's my Ismail, that I have to change that. Is my Ismail that I only turn up on the 10th of Muharram for 10 nights? The whole year you never see me in the mosque. Imam al-Hadi and Imam al-Askari I didn't honor until they bombed their mosques. Had they not bombed their mosques, I would not know a single thing about their life. Maybe that's your Ismail. Everybody on the night of the 10th of Muharram has an Ismail. Do not just wait till you get to Hajj and say, I will sacrifice that animal, that's my Ismail. No. Tonight is when you say, what's my Ismail? What's the sacrifice that I should make? Why? Because Shariati says that man was willing to give away his son. Is it really that difficult for you to put an 18-inch piece of cloth on your hair? When a man gives away his son and says, Ya Allah, take my son, and all we ask people is to put 18 inches of cloth on their hair, is that difficult? Is it that difficult to make relations with family when a man gives away his son? Is it that difficult to stop earning in haram when a man gives away his son? Is it that difficult to stop having an illegitimate relationship when a man gives away his son? He says, what is your Ismail? The moment you answer that question, that's when your life changes. Then he says, but God says to you, don't run away that quickly from Mina. Wait. Why? Because he says, God's going to tell you that you think you're going to become religious. He's not going to stop attacking you now. Is he? Because when you weren't religious, he doesn't get involved in your life, shaitan. He says, I've done my job. The moment you become religious, how many people experience when they become religious, shaitan affects them more? Why? Because he was saying, before I had defeated this person, now this person has got much stronger. Now I have to return. So he says, that's why God told you, make sure you have a few more pebbles. Because just in case he comes back to you, he is going to come back. In front of you, behind you, to your left, to your right. He's going to return. But make sure you throw those pebbles at him. I remember on a side note, when one of our friends was in Hajj, so he had gone near the Jamarat and he was throwing the stones, and then he took a picture. So someone came up to him and said to him, how dare you take a picture? That shaitan you take a picture of? He said, come on, this guy was my friend for 30 years. You think I'm going to leave his friendship that quickly? He says those pebbles are to remind you that shaitan will not stop. Don't come back from Hajj and then suddenly change back. No, as soon as you come back, you've done your Ismail, keep the Ismails going every day. Keep the sacrifices moving. Then he says that know that Hajj is a show of unity. That we the Muslims who follow the Ja'fari school, when we come to Hajj, we should seek to unite with those who follow the school of Abu Hanifa, and those who follow the school of Malik, those who follow the school of Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, those who follow the school of Ahmad bin Hanbal, because all of us come under the banner of La ilaha illallah and Muhammad Rasulullah. Unity doesn't mean we compromise our beliefs. It means we act with manners when we discuss the beliefs of others. There's too many in the school of Ahlul Bayt who are being bigger enemies for the school than the people outside the school. And that's got to stop. It's got to stop. On YouTube we have people who are disgraceful figures claiming to represent Al Muhammad. And they come on their videos and their lectures attacking people from other schools in Islam and attacking their personalities. Simply because I disagree with another personality in the religion of Islam does not mean I rudely attack them. There are Muslims in the world who respect those figures. If I have a difference, I will describe them like my Imam described them by saying that X, Y, and Z is why we disagree. That's it. But to use the pulpit to be rude or condescending against the figures of other schools in Islam is not part of the manners of the school of Ahlul Bayt. And anybody who encourages it is an enemy to Al Muhammad. Because Ahlul Bayt, when they would discuss the religion, the Imam himself would say that is the Ra'i of Ahlul Kufa, Abu Hanifa. That's the Ra'i of Medina, Malik ibn Anas. And this is the Ra'i of Ja'far ibn Muhammad. He will acknowledge that other Muslims have opinions. We have an opinion. We do not go about rudely with our opinions. No. Rather, we seek to express our opinions with respect, with morals, with an attitude of either we agree to agree or we agree to disagree. When you go to Hajj, make sure that it's a show of unity. That even we put out our hands, if they don't shake it, as long as we put out our hands. Do you know 2 years ago in Mina, the lecture that was given by the Imam of the mosque over there, the kufr of Abu Talib. Let him, doesn't matter. But don't you reply back with abuse. He gives his opinion, I'll reply with 100 lectures on Abu Talib. No problem. But don't be abusive, make it a show of unity, because the Muslim world requires Muslims to be united. And if we have differences, let the scholars sit and academically sit and discuss the differences. Don't let laymen discuss the differences, because laymen will get us in trouble. Then after that he says Hajj is the show of the Muslim Ummah. And he asks the question, why didn't Aba Abdullah complete his Hajj before Karbala? This is where Shariati lets out his feelings about Imam Hussein. He says the grandson of Rasulullah doesn't complete his Hajj. Isn't that a tragedy? He said, but Aba Abdullah, when he didn't complete his Hajj, he was telling you how Hajj should be completed. Look at that now. He didn't complete his Hajj, but he was telling you how Hajj should be completed. Why? Because Aba Abdullah was telling you, what's the point of me completing Hajj when there is a tyrant sitting there and none of us are speaking out against him? All of you are doing tawaf, yet you don't speak out against oppression in the Ummah. All of you have gone to Safa and Marwa, you don't speak out against oppression in the Ummah. All of you are going to Muzdalifah, you don't speak out against oppression. All of you are going to Mina, you don't speak out against oppression. I won't complete a Hajj just for the sake of doing rituals. The Hajj of Imam al-Hussein is a Hajj where slogans are called out against the oppressors of the Muslim Ummah. Both the oppression which is internal and the oppression which is external. We have internal oppression, without a doubt. We have that Jannah called Jannat al-Baqi'. That piece of Jannah, that piece of heaven, which every day they are demolishing. Every day they are putting fences around. It's the duty of every one of the followers of Ahlul Bayt to put up a slogan in Hajj to say, why? Aren't these the family of Rasulullah? Don't they deserve more reverence? Likewise, there is external oppression we need to speak about. The followers of Ahlul Bayt in Parachinar being mutilated every day, killed every day, executed every day. There should be slogans speaking out against those who do this against the followers of Ahlul Bayt. Those who kill the followers. Aba Abdullah didn't complete his Hajj. Why? Because he was showing the other companions who were living at the time. He was showing them that you can all perform your Hajj, but none of you are speaking against Yazid. That's not Hajj. Hajj is that I sit here and I speak out against the man. And I make sure that that man does not continue to rule the state. And if it means that they got to chop me up, then let this body be chopped up. For if bodies are meant to die and decay, then let this body be chopped into 1,000 pieces. The body will be chopped up, but the message of Hussein will never die. And that's why he said that Imam didn't complete his Hajj and went to Karbala, because he wanted to make clear that I will stand to look after this ummah. إني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا ولا مفسدا ولا ظالما وإنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي رسول الله أريد أن آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وأسير بسيرة جدي وأبي علي بن أبي طالب. He said, I have not come out for fame. I haven't come out for glory. I haven't come out to win your votes or to oppress. I've simply come out to reform the ummah of my grandfather, to enjoin the good, to forbid the evil, and to live by the principles of my grandfather and my father, Ali ibn Abi Talib. And truly, Aba Abdullah, as one person mentioned, like the author Charles Dickens mentioned, we learn justice from Hussein. Why? Because a man normally wouldn't take his family with him. He may take others and sacrifice them. But you see, Ibrahim, at least he never had to sacrifice that son. Because when Ibrahim came to sacrifice Ismail, Allah had replaced the sacrifice. May Allah bless the soul of Aba Abdullah when he had to bring about his 6-month-old baby on the 10th of Muharram. How difficult a sacrifice. If only Ibrahim had seen that sacrifice on the 10th of Muharram. May Allah give patience. May Allah give patience to Rabab, the mother of the Radi'. Do you know one poet described Rabab when they returned on the 40th, when they came back to Karbala? One poet said, shall I tell you what Rabab said to the earth of Karbala? Imagine a mother speaks to the earth. She says, O land of Karbala, don't sting the wound of my baby. Because where that arrow hit, and that's why even our 4th Imam says, when I was burying my father, his holy head spoke to me. And he said to me, I heard a voice speak to me, saying to me, oh my son, let the 6-month-old baby be buried on my chest. Put him on my chest. That's why That's why when you visit the shrine of Aba Abdullah, Ali al-Akbar is by his feet and the 6-month-old is on his chest. And you know what he said to the Imam? He said to him, the heat of the arrow stings me until now. That's why Aba Abdullah was approached by Sayyida Zainab with the 6-month-old baby. When she approached him with the 6-month-old baby, the narration states to us that she said to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, this 6-month-old baby doesn't even have the energy to cry anymore. That 6-month-old baby had not drunk anything. Imagine that mother couldn't give anything anymore. Aba Abdullah took that baby, he went towards the opposition and the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. He called out to them, he said to them, O army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, I just want to ask you for water for this baby. If you want to kill me, then you go ahead and kill me. But the baby hasn't committed any sins. There was no reply from the army. So what did he do? He went and placed the baby on the ground of Karbala. One poet says, if Ali Asghar wanted to, he could have struck his feet on the ground like Ismail and water would have come out. He left him on the ground. He thought, surely now he's not next to me, one of them will come and give him water. Nobody came. He then took him back the 3rd time. He called out, O army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, I plead with you, give him some water. Half of the army were saying, give the baby water. The baby hasn't done anything to us. The other half was saying, no, kill the baby like we're going to kill the father. Nobody describes what happened like Al-Mukhtar al-Thaqafi when he caught hold of Harmala ibn Kahil. After Karbala, Mukhtar al-Thaqafi caught hold of Harmala ibn Kahil and he said to him, Harmala, tell me what you did on the 10th of Muharram. Harmala said to him, on the 10th of Muharram, I struck 7 arrows towards the army of Imam al-Hussein. He said to him, how many of those arrows struck their target? He said to him, 4 of those arrows struck their target and 3 of them missed. He said to him, Harmala, tell me who the first arrow struck. He said, I struck the first arrow on the right eye of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. When Abu Fadl al-Abbas was on his horse and his hands had been cut off him, Umar ibn Sa'ad said to me, strike your arrow on the eye of Abbas. So I struck the arrow on the right eye of Abu Fadl. He said to him, "Oh Hanbala, tell me who the second arrow struck." Hanbala replied, "I struck the second arrow on the nephew of Imam al-Hussein by the name of Abdullah ibn al-Hasan." Imam al-Hasan had a number of sons in Karbala. One of them was called Abdullah. This Abdullah, when Imam al-Hussein was lying on the ground, arrows had surrounded his body. This Abdullah could see these men were coming to attack his uncle. He ran out. Sayyidah Zainab tried to hold him. He ran out. He said, "I don't allow any of you to hit my uncle." He went and sat near his uncle's body. Hanbala said, "Umar ibn Sa'ad said to me, strike your arrow on that young boy." So he said, "I struck my arrow on the hand of the young boy." He then said to him, "Hanbala, who did the third arrow strike?" Listen to this line. He said, "The third arrow struck the 6-month-old baby of Abu Abdullah." He said to him, "Oh Mukhtar, that arrow hurts me until today." Mukhtar said to him, "What happened when you struck that arrow?" He said, "I used an arrow which we used to cut the neck of a camel." Brothers, how big is the neck of a camel? And a camel can contain thirst. He said, "I struck the baby when I saw the whiteness of the neck of the baby. I struck the arrow on his neck." Mukhtar said to him, "What happened when you struck the arrow?" He replied, "I saw the baby flap its hands like a bird flaps its wings." He then said to him at this moment, "What was the fourth arrow that you struck?" He said, "The fourth arrow I struck on the chest of Abu Abdullah." Imagine how difficult it was for Abu Abdullah when he saw this baby flap its hands like a bird flaps its wings. The narration states he went back to his army. He said, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." He went back and he said, "Inna lillahi." He went a third time. He did this 7 times. Someone called out, "Hussein, why did you do this?" He said, "I don't know how to tell a mother that its baby's neck has been pierced." How do you tell the mother? As in, this mother expects her baby to come back. Imam al-Hussein, look at this moment. He went to Sayyidah Zainab. He said, "My sister Zainab, you have to tell the mother. I can't tell the mother." Sayyidah Zainab, may Allah bless you and give you salawat. Sayyidah Zainab walked towards the tent of Rabah. When she walked, she looked at her and she said, "Did you see the way Layla gave away Ali al-Akbar?" She said, "Yes, I did." She said to her, "Did you see the way Ramla gave away Qasim?" She said, "Yes, I did." She said to her, "Did you see the way al-Banin gave away Abu Fadl Abbas?" She said to her, "Yes, I did." Has my son gone towards the way that those ladies gave away their sons? Sayyidah Zainab said to her, "Your son has an arrow between his neck." Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. May Allah bless these tears and allow them to be intercession for the day of judgment. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and Al Muhammad, to allow us to be amongst the companions of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, to allow us to be amongst his followers. Ya Allah, allow us to honor the message of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Allow us to be amongst those who receive his intercession on the day of judgment. Unite the Muslim Ummah on the path of Muhammad and Al Muhammad. As we know, tomorrow will be the Masa'ib of Imam al-Hussein, the last moments in the life of Imam al-Hussein. Tomorrow morning, inshallah, I shall begin at 11 o'clock. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with Surah al-Fatiha, but before it, the loudest of your salawat.